Friends, in this video we are going to learn about vectors. Vectors happen to be a very important mathematical tool with which you would handle the entire class 11th and 12th physics. Grasping this tool will be a very important and crucial for you all. So kindly go ahead with this particular topic with utmost attention and with utmost dedication, friends. In this particular video, we would be learning about what vector exactly is. What is the need of having a vector quantity? How a vector quantity is represented in our textbook or during our writing, and then what basic information can a vector convey to us. So all these introductory part of the vectors are going to be introduced in this particular video, friends. Let's look to a particular situation. Why do we really need a vector? Imagine a situation where you are standing inside your school oval, let's say in school crossroad, somewhere over here, and there is a gentleman, there is a visitor who is visiting your school. Now this visitor wants to know where the school library is. So he asks you where the school library happens to be situated, and you suppose just give him an answer as 0.5 miles from here. So he would start wondering that whether he should move towards his left or towards his right, or he should walk in the front, or whether he should go back 0.5 miles. Where should he exactly go? So in such a situation, it becomes necessary for you to tell him he should walk 0.5 meters towards his left or right, in the front or the back. So in all these situations, when I say he needs to walk 0.5 miles towards left, what you are doing, you are not just specifying the distance, you are also trying to specify the direction. So many a times in physics you handle with quantities or physical quantities which, apart from magnitude and unit, requires some sense of directions also to be associated with it. Such physical quantities which requires, apart from magnitude plus unit, another quantity, another factor, and that is direction, such physical quantities are referred by us as vectors. So what are vectors? Vectors are those physical quantities which requires magnitude as well as some sense of direction. But just having the some sense of direction, will it make it a vector quantity? It is not at all necessary, friends. There will be number of physical quantities which do have the sense of direction, but they may not be termed as vectors. We are going to see them little later afterwards. So some of the physical quantities that you would study in class 11th which will be a vector quantities are, say, velocity. That's the very first thing that you will very soon start learning about. Even displacement. You would learn about the terms like force. You would learn a term like momentum. So all these quantities which I have written down over here can be termed as vector quantities. In physics, as I told you, physics is all about dealing with the physical quantities. Now, what are physical quantities? Physical quantities are those quantities that can be measured. Now, when you measure any physical quantity, or whenever you are talking about measurable quantities, every measurable quantities require two basic things, magnitude and unit. as I told you just now, it may sometimes require the sense of direction. So those physical quantities which require just magnitude and unit but no sense of direction in order to classify that particular physical quantity, such physical quantities are termed as scalar quantities. For example, speed, mass, work, etc. But apart from that, if a physical quantity requires magnitude, unit as well as sense of direction, then we call such physical quantities as vector quantities, provided what they do, they follow the law of vector addition. And some of the commonly used vector quantities that you would very soon are going to encounter in your physics will be velocity, momentum, force, acceleration. So all these physical quantities are going to be termed as vector quantities. Now, what is triangle law of vector addition we are going to understand little later afterward. But you should understand that there is a bearing need for any physical quantity to be classified as vector quantity. It must follow the triangle law of, or simply law of, vector addition. Those quantities which have a sense of direction and still they do not follow law of vector addition, they have sense of direction but they are not following the law of vector addition, they would be termed as scalar quantities. For example, the simplest one is current. In your junior class, you might have been told current flows from higher potential to lower potential. So if I am saying कि भाई ये तार है and the current is flowing from, let's say this is at a higher potential A, this is a lower potential B. So you say that the current flows from higher potential to lower potential. So there is a sense of direction I can see. In one specific direction, let me call as direction AB, the current is flowing. Shouldn't I call the current as a vector quantity? Current का symbol I है. Shouldn't I call current as a vector quantity? Because it has a sense of direction. Does it follow this particular law of vector addition or not? If it is going to follow the law of vector addition, definitely I can classify it as a vector quantity. But if it does not follow the law of vector addition, I can't classify it as a vector quantity. And in case of current, the current definitely has a sense of direction. But since it does not follow the law of vector addition, that's the reason why I cannot classify the current as a vector quantity. Similarly, it goes for the time also. You can always say like this event, this is my past, this is present, that is future. So there is a sense of direction also associated with the time now. There is something which is called as past, there is something which you are calling as present, there is something you are calling as future. So in any timeline, there is also a sense of direction from present to future. Can I classify time also as a vector quantity? The answer is no. Why can't I classify time as a vector quantity? The simple reason is that once again the time does not follow the law of vector addition or the triangle law of vector addition. So in order to be classified as vector quantity, the physical quantity apart from having the sense of direction must also follow the triangle law of vector addition. If it follows the triangle law of vector addition, definitely it is going to be termed as vector quantity. So have you understood what do I mean when I say a vector quantity is? Is that clear to all of you? Now, how do we represent any vector quantities? In order to represent any vector quantities, how do we write a vector quantity? When you are writing a vector quantity is written with the symbol of that physical quantity and the arrowhead on the top. For example, if I have to write down force, so the symbol for force is F. So F becomes the symbol and let's say arrowhead on the top. This becomes the symbol of force vector. So similarly, if I have to write down say acceleration, then what is the symbol for acceleration? Let's say A with an arrowhead on the top. If I want to write a velocity vector, V with an arrowhead on the top. If I want to write momentum vector, P with a arrowhead on the top. So this is how we write down any vector quantities when you are going to write down in your copies. Now, if you are going to print it in books, so most of the time while printing, it is printed with a bold face. Okay, we bold the symbol which we are talking about. So if you are talking about force, so you want it to write down you want to print it in your copy. So what will be done for computer printing? We will make it bold. So every bold face letter, it stands for vector quantity. Or new technique that has been taken in typing is that we put an underline between below the symbol. So if you put a underline term below the symbol, that also means we are talking about a vector quantity. So nowadays what is happening with the advent of the computers, what we do, we write down the symbol and we put a underline below that symbol. So that means you are dealing with a vector quantity. Now, diagrammatically, when you are going to draw a diagram of a vector, what do? We draw a vector with the help of an arrowhead. So a vector is represented diagrammatically with the help of an arrowhead. Now, every arrowhead has got three parts. You all must understand that every vector quantity, whenever it is drawn by an arrowhead, it will have a three part. It will have the tail, it will have the head, and it will have the body. The tail of the vector is always placed on the body on which you want to indicate that particular vector. For example, let's say there is a box. Okay, so there is a box. And on this box, I apply a force of 10 Newton. So what I am going to do, I am going to place the tail of the vector on the box. Then what I am going to do, I am going to apply an arrowhead and force of how much Newton I have said? Let's say I have said as force of 10 Newton. In what direction? Let me say towards the right. Is that clear? So I am just drawing it. This arrowhead is drawn towards the right. And then this length of this arrowhead will tell me the magnitude part of the vector. Is that clear? So what I am going to do, I may draw a 10 centimeter line and say it is for every 1 centimeter means 1 Newton. That is always drawn to scale. I may draw 5 centimeter line and I will say 2 centimeter means 1 Newton. Are you getting it? Similarly, if I say there is another force which acts on this box, let's say of 20 Newton, and this force is acting towards the left side. So what I will do, I will draw another arrowhead, double the length of this. Okay, this arrowhead is just double the length and is drawn towards the left. Let me call this as force F2, and this should be 20 Newton. So this length must be of, let's say, 20 centimeter. If I take the scale of 1 centimeter being 1 Newton, if I take the scale of 2 centimeter being 1 Newton, then it will be 10 centimeter. Did you got this? Have you all understood? So diagrammatically, a vector quantity is represented with the help of an arrowhead. Every arrowhead will have three parts: the tail, the head, and the body itself. The tail is going to be placed where? On the body at which the vector is required to be indicated. Head indicates the direction along which the vector must be pointing, and the magnitude part of that vector will be represented by the length of the arrowhead. That becomes the body part of the arrowhead. So vectors magnitude is represented by the length of the arrowhead. Is that clear? So length part of the vector is represents the magnitude and is always written as modulus. Can you see over here? The modulus. The symbol, the vector symbol along with two straight line. or simply what happened, I remove the arrowhead of the symbol. So whenever you find for a vector quantity you just want to represent the magnitude part of that vector, what you do, you simply write it down with the help of modulus. Suppose I'm just interested in knowing the magnitude part, not the direction. So what I will do, I will write the symbol itself. For example, for the force 10 Newton, I will put as F is equals to 10 Newton. Or I may write down the magnitude part for a force as force vector with a magnitude as 10 Newton. Magnitude of F2 vector was, I can write it down as F2 mod is equals to 20 Newton. Is that clear? Or simply F2 is equals to 20 Newton. Now, every vector needs to represent the direction. In physics, you need to understand direction just not simply means left, right, up, down, back, forth. In physics, the direction is often defined by the angle that the vector makes with the horizontal or the x-axis. Is that clear? What I am saying, the direction of any vector is represented with the help of angle. From where this angle is to be measured, this angle must be measured from the horizontal line or from the x-axis. X-axis horizontal line hoti hai na? Horizontal line can also be called as a sleeping line if you have got any confusion. So this becomes my horizontal line. Can you see? This is my horizontal line. You want to also call it as sleeping line? I can call it as a sleeping line. So whatsoever the angle the vector is making with the horizontal line or the sleeping line, that angle is going to define the direction of the. Is that clear? You can also call it as bearing of the vector. Is this okay? So have you understood how do you define the length of the vector? The length of the vector is defined by the magnitude. How do we define the direction of the vector? The direction of the vector is always defined by the angle that the vector makes with the horizontal line. Now the next most important thing that comes in physics is about the reference frame. Now in physics, every reference frame consists of space coordinates that is going to define your position in the space, and the next important variable that comes is the time coordinate. So there are two coordinates that will define the particle itself. The first one will be the space coordinates and the second one will be the time coordinates when we are going to talk about the motion of the body. Later afterwards, maybe studying heat, you will understand some other variables are going to define the parameters of that particular thing. For example, in heat, the pressure, the volume, the temperature of the body is going to define the state of the body. So whenever we are talking about motion mechanics, the space coordinate and the time coordinates are used as a variables which are going to define the position of the body. Is that clear? So what I do, I will draw two axes. One axis I am going to call as time axis, another one axis I am going to call as space axis or space coordinate axis. Always remember the x axis. What is the x axis? Do you all know? This horizontal axis sleeping line is the x axis, and this standing line is called as y axis. Now, as a thumb rule in physics, all independent variable means जिनका कंट्रोल आपके हाथ में नहीं है, टाइम को आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते हो, it varies independently. So all independent variables will lie on the x-axis, and whatsoever depends upon that particular independent variable is going to lie on the y-axis. बात समझ में आई? तो y-axis is always dependent variable axis and x-axis is always independent variable axis. Time varies independently, so the time axis is always going to be taken on the x-axis. The space is going to depend, your position is going to depend upon that time, so it is going to go on to the y-axis. Now comes the origin. Now this origin happens to be the position where the observer is going to be located. So the observer is always going to be located at the origin, and this is what is going to be called as the reference frame. So a reference frame consists of three things. What are those three things? The space coordinate axis, the time axis, and the observer. At the origin, the observer is going to be located. Is that clear? So whosoever is the observer is going to be situated at the origin. So as I told you, y-axis was dependent and x-axis was independent variable. Now, the space coordinates that we are going to study consist of three axes. Now, this space coordinates was defined by Cartesian, and it is called as rectangular coordinate system. क्या मैंने बोला है? Rectangular coordinate system. Rectangular coordinate system. Is that clear? Why rectangular? Rectangle का मतलब 90 degrees. So what happens in this? All these three axes are inclined at an angle of 90 degrees. That's why it is called as a rectangular coordinate system. Now the left right axis, can you see this axis? Left right axis? The left right axis is called as x-axis. Now the up and down axis is called as y-axis, and anything that comes out of this plane of the screen, से जो भी बाहर निकल रहा है, अब मैं बाहर तो नहीं निकाल सकता था ना डायग्राम में, तो whatsoever comes out of the outside of the plane of the screen is called as its z-axis. So left right axis, the red color axis is the x-axis, the black color axis happens to be the y-axis, and the blue color axis happens to be the z-axis. While drawing the diagram, since z-axis comes out of the plane, I am going to denote it by a dot and a circle. Anything that comes out of the screen, this dot and circle means anything that is coming out of the screen. Is that clear? And anything that goes inside the plane of the screen, inside the plane of the screen, it is called as, is denoted by a cross and a circle. So since we live in a three-dimensional space, it consists of x-axis, y-axis, and the z-axis. Z-axis is anything that comes out of the plane. Is that clear? So these were the Cartesian coordinate systems axes. Now, with the help of these axes, I make up planes. Now, with the help of x and y, I get an xy plane. With the help of yz, I get a yz plane. And with the help of xz, I get a xz plane. Now, mostly this xz plane is called as horizontal plane or ground. This is mostly, I am not saying always. Is that clear? So mostly xz plane is going to be called as the ground. Is that clear? So the wall that you see is xy plane. The front wall that we are seeing is xy plane. The left wall that you will say will be by yz plane. And the floor is going to be then be called as xz plane or horizontal plane or ground. Is that clear? Any doubt over there? Any confusion over there? Directions and bearings. Now the first thing that you should understand what are directions. Now directions are mostly defined in terms of north, south, east, west, and they are the simple geography directions that you might have studied in your junior classes. For example, in geography you might have been told about two lines. Left right line is called a east west direction, and then up and down is called as north south. Is that clear? Now if there is a point which lies in this thing, let's say the point P as I've shown over there, so this particular point P, if I have to mention the direction of P, how I am going to mention the direction of P? I will always be mentioning the direction of P with the help of north south line. So how you are going to read this direction, how you are going to tell me the direction of this point P? You will say the direction of P lies 30 degree east of north. समझ में आ गई बात? Is that clear? Suppose the point lies over here, and let's say this is lying at an angle of say 60 degree. So how you are going to read the direction of the point Q? Direction of Q will be 60 degree west of north. Is that clear? So the direction is often read or written as degrees of north or degrees of south. For example, the point of R. Let's say this is the R, and let's say it makes an angle of 30 degrees. So what you are going to say, direction of R will be 30 degree west of south. So directions are always stated with the help of number of degrees, either east or west of north south line. Is that clear? That's how you should read the direction, or that's how you should mention the directions when you are solving a numerical problem. So in numerical problems you will be getting the direction stated in this particular format. Now bearings. So bearings are basically the angles. Bearings are basically the angles always measured counterclockwise. Sorry, always measured in a clockwise direction. Always measured in a clockwise direction from the north line. They are called as bearings. ठीक है? कैसे मेजर करते हैं? क्लॉकवाइज डायरेक्शन में किससे? नॉर्थ साउथ लाइन से. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, let's say this is the point P. So if I have to mention the bearing of point P, and the P makes an angle of 30 degrees, so what will the bearing of point P? It is bearing of point P is 30 degree. As simple as that. Is that clear? Clockwise, bearing of point P from हो ना, ठीक है? तो bearing of point P is 30 degree from the north line. In which direction we are measuring? In the clockwise direction. So what will be the direction of say point Q now? What angle it was making? It was earlier making an angle 60 degree. The clockwise direction you have to measure the angle. So once you measure this angle in the clockwise direction, this is the angle that you are going to measure in the clockwise. How much it will be? 300 degree. So bearing of Q will be 300 degree. Is that clear? So what will be the angle of bearing of R? Okay, there was no R. But earlier example there was some R na? So what will be the angle of R then? Think about it and comment it. Go back to the video, look into the thing, and then you can always mention your comments in the comment box. Let's move on to the properties of vectors. The first very property is called as translation of vectors. Suppose there is some vector. Let's call it as vector A. Now, by translating the vector A in the space, the vector does not change. तो A को कहीं पर भी स्लाइड करोगे प्लेन में, स्पेस में, वेक्टर A बदलेगा नहीं. By sliding the vector, by translating the vector remains unchanged. Is that clear? The plane of the screen that you are watching is XY plane, isn't it? X axis left, right, up, down, Y axis. So by translating the vector in the XY plane, the vector does not change. Now, rotating a vector. So what is the vector A? and what you are doing, you are multiplying this vector by -1. So whenever you multiply a vector by -1, what happens to the vector? Vector gets rotated by an angle of 180 degree. So this one is my A vector. Can you see this one? This was my A vector, and this solid one will be, solid arrow is going to represent my -A vector. So this becomes my -A, and this becomes my +A. So you multiply, whenever you multiply a vector by -1, basically what you are doing, you are rotating the vector by 180 degree. Is that okay to everyone? Any confusion? Any doubt? Okay. Now, if you multiply a vector by a positive number, suppose there is a vector A, and you multiply it by, let's say, 2. So by multiplying the vector, what you are going to do? By multiplying a vector by 2, what you are going to do? You are going to increase the length of a vector by 2. So you scale the vector by that many times. As many times you multiply the vector, the magnitude of that number, you scale the vector, you increase the length of the vector. Let's say you multiply it by 1.5, then the length will increase by 1.5. Is that clear? Any confusion anywhere? Now, if you multiply a vector by a negative number, say -2, you know what happens when you multiply the vector by a -1, -1, you rotate it by 180 degree. And since you are multiplying it by 2, then what we are doing, we are scaling the vector also. So what would happen when you multiply a vector by -2a, you are going to rotate the vector by 180 degree, and you are going to increase the length also by 2. Here what I have done, I have shown you by rotation of a vector by -1.5a. So by multiplying it by -1, the vector got rotated by 180 degree, and its length got increased by 1.5 times. So this will give me my -1.5a. Is that clear? So what happens when you multiply a number by multiply a vector by a positive number? You simply increase the length of that vector. But if you multiply a vector by a negative number, you do two operations. You increase the length also, as well as you rotate the vector also. How do we measure the angles between the two vectors? Now, the angle between the two vectors are measured either by joining their tails together or by joining their heads together. So you can see I have joined the heads together, and whatsoever the smallest angle that is being formed, let's say this angle is alpha. So this angle alpha will become my angle between the two vectors. Or what can be done? I can join their tails together. So if I join their tails together, whatsoever the smallest angle that is being formed, this becomes my smallest angle that is being formed. Let me call it as beta. So the angle between these two vectors now to be called as beta degrees. Is that clear? So these were some of the properties associated with the vector. Types of vectors. Equal vectors. Now, when two vectors are going to be set as equal vectors. Now, two vectors are going to be set as equal vectors only and only if their magnitudes are equal, okay, and their sense of direction are same. So if there is a vector A and then there is a vector B, and you find their lengths are same, and you find they are pointing in the same direction, then only you can say the vectors are equal in magnitude. Is this clear? Now, coplanar vectors. Vectors that happens to lie in the same plane. Plane याद है? X axis y axis को मिला के एक plane बना था. ये वाला कौन सा plane है? This is a basketball court. Can you tell me which plane it is? So this is your XZ plane. As I told you, the ground is often referred as XZ plane. So this, let's call it as XZ plane. Okay. Now, in this XZ plane, the boy starts from this position A, and he goes from this end to the visiting team end by dodging from here, then he reached to this point, from here, then it reached to this point, and then he reached to this point. So his displacement is denoted by, at different instance, say 0.1 starts from 0, 0.1, then reach to 2, then reach to 3. Let's say initially it was 0, 1, yeah, 0, 1, then 1, 2, then 2, 3. So there are three vectors that represent. This is the first vector A, this represents the second vector B, this represents my third vector C. So his displacement is represented by three vectors, isn't it? So A, B and C, they happens to lie in the same plane, ground plane, XZ plane. So they would be termed as coplanar vectors. So vector that happens to lie in one plane, they are called as coplanar vectors. Now you need to understand all vector algebra is applicable for coplanar vectors. Your basic algebra vectors you are going to learn at class 11th level, they will only and be only applicable for coplanar vectors. Another type of vector is zero or null vector. So a vector whose magnitude is 0 is called as null vector or zero vector. So a vector whose magnitude is 0, so its direction will become meaningless now. Since its direction is meaningless and its magnitude is 0, such vectors are called as zero vector or null vector, often represented with the help of O. Now there are two basic properties with a zero vectors. Zero vectors, if it gets added with any other vector, the vector remains unchanged. But if zero vector is multiplied with any number, the vector itself becomes 0. That number also becomes a zero vectors. Now the most important type of vectors are called as unit vectors. Now you need to understand those vectors whose magnitude happens to be 1 is called as unit vectors. A vector whose magnitude itself happens to be 1 is going to be called as unit vector. Now how can you obtain a unit vector? A unit vector is always obtained by dividing the vector by its own magnitude and is denoted by a cap. So can you see there is a cap is being put over here? So अभी तक वेक्टर्स में डिफाइन करने के लिए एरो लगा रहे थे. A unit vector is not written with an arrowhead. A unit vector is always written with a cap. And how you obtain a unit vector? You obtain a unit vector by dividing the vector by its own magnitude. So let's say there is a vector A over here. Can you see this vector A? So if I am interested in finding out the unit vector A, so what I should do? I should divide the vector A by its own magnitude. So if I divide the vector by its own magnitude, what I will get is unit vector. What is the importance of a unit vector? A unit vector is used to tell me the direction of the vector. So whenever you have been asked to find out the direction of a vector or write down the direction of a vector, what you should do? You should find the unit vector of that very particular vector. Is that clear? How do you write down the unit vector? How do you find out the magnitude of how do you calculate the or find the unit vector? Take the vector, divide by its magnitude. Now in physics, I just now told you space coordinates. Remember? So what were space coordinates? They were the Cartesian coordinates and they consist of three axes. What were those three axes? The x-axis, the y-axis and the z-axis. Now any vector, any unit vector that happens to lie along the positive x-axis is called as I cap. So if I want to tell you that anything moves along the positive x-axis, so what I am going to do, I will write down as I cap. Suppose I want to tell you that a body, remember just now we discussed about a box being pulled by a force of F1 was 10 Newton on right side, isn't it? 10 Newton on right side. Now if I want to write down in a vector form, what I will be doing, I will be saying F1 vector will be equals to 10 I cap Newton. Because the force is acting towards the positive x-axis now. So how I am going to write it down as 10 I cap. There was another force which was acting onto the box now. What was that force of? 20 Newton. F2 was 20 Newton. So how do you what we are going to write down for F2 now? F2 will be equals to 20, and in which direction it is acting? Negative x-axis. So what you are going to do? Minus. Is that clear? So that's how the unit vectors define the sense of direction. And now a specific sense of direction along the positive x-axis I cap, along the negative x-axis, along the negative x-axis minus I cap, along the positive y-axis j cap, and along the negative y-axis minus j cap. Anything that comes out of the plane, k cap. Anything that goes inside the plane, minus k cap. Is that clear? Now let's draw the rectangular unit vectors. Now, as you have already seen, this is the Cartesian coordinate axis. The horizontal line represents the x-axis, the vertical line represents the y-axis, and anything that comes out of the plane is going to represent the positive z-axis. Now the two axes combined to give me the space, so this becomes xy plane, this becomes yz plane, and this becomes xz plane, and all the three combines to give me the space. This is the xyz space. Now anything that is along the positive x-axis is called as I cap, anything that is along the positive y-axis is j cap, anything that is along the positive z-axis is k cap. Any confusion onto that? So x-axis positive I cap, j positive y-axis, k positive z-axis. Now resolving a vector into its component. Now this is the most important thing that you should know. It's not possible to have the vector always directed along the x-axis, y-axis or z-axis. A situation might come that the vector is making some angle with the x-axis. So let's say there is a vector A which makes some angle theta with the x-axis. So how do you resolve a vector quantity? In order to resolve a vector quantity, what you need to do, you need to drop a perpendicular from the tip, from the head of the vector on the respective axis. So what I'm going to do, where is the head? Can you find out the head? This is the head of the vector. So from the head or the tip of the vector, what I need to do, I need to drop a perpendicular. So I drop a perpendicular. Where that perpendicular should go? Either on the x-axis or on the y-axis. So what I have done, I have dropped the perpendicular from the tip or the head on the x-axis. I have dropped a perpendicular from the tip onto the y-axis. Done that? Is that clear? Then the component of the vectors will be obtained by joining the tail of the vector to the foot of the perpendicular. Once again I repeat. Then the components will be obtained by joining the tail. Where is the tail? This is the tail, isn't it? So by joining the tail to the foot, this is one foot, this is another foot. So by joining the foots F1 and F2, so I am drawing an arrow length from the tail of the vector to the foot of the perpendicular. Now since it lies along the x-axis, I am going to call it as AX or the x component, and this will be termed as AY or the y component. Is that clear? So that's how you obtain the components. Now remember, vectors are always freely slided. They can be slided freely anywhere in the space. So what I am going to do, I am going to slide this AY vector and bring it to the head of the AX component. So now you can see I have made a right angle triangle. Now at class 11th level, whenever you find a right angle triangle, you should always think first for trigonometrical ratio and then you should think for Pythagoras theorem. I know you all kids are in the habit of thinking for Pythagoras theorem whenever you see a right angle triangle. But my advice to all of you is that the moment you see a right angle triangle now onwards, don't think in terms of Pythagoras theorem, first think in terms of trigonometrical ratios. What were the trigonometrical ratios? Sine, cos and tan. What is sine theta? Perpendicular upon hypotenuse. What is cos theta? Base upon hypotenuse. What is tan theta? Perpendicular upon base. The moment you see a right angle triangle, what you have to think? You have to think about the T ratios, the trigonometrical ratios. So using trigonometrical ratios. Now, can you use the trigonometrical ratio? Use it. AX upon A. This is the base of the triangle, isn't it? This is the perpendicular of the triangle, and this happens to be the hypotenuse of the triangle. Now base upon hypotenuse is cos, so cos theta is equals to AX upon A, and perpendicular upon hypotenuse is sine, so AY will be equal, AY upon A will be equal to sine theta. So you got the cos theta and the sine theta. Now rearrange the terms. AX is equals to A cos theta, so that's how you get the X component, and AI is equals to A sin theta, that's how you get the Y component. Is that clear? So the vector A is made up of two components. What was those two components? One is X component, another one is Y component, but X component is directed along the I axis, along the X axis, so I am going to write down as AX I cap, and the second component was AY, so plus, since it is made up of two, AY J cap. So a vector in component forms is represented as A vector is equals to AX I cap plus AY J cap. This is representation of vector in component form. Is that clear? Any confusion to anyone? Now, what is the length? What is the hypotenuse of the right angle triangle? That was magnitude of A, isn't it? This was the hypotenuse of the right angle triangle, yes or no? And using the Pythagoras theorem, you know hypotenuse square is equals to base square or perpendicular square plus base square, yes or no?
Yes.
Hypotenuse is magnitude of A vector. The magnitude of A vector का square is equals to perpendicular component is AX square plus AY square. So magnitude of vector A is equals to under the root of AX square plus AY square. Clear? That is how you represent a vector in their component forms. I am just going to put up that all thing in the next slide. So this was the X and the Y component as I told you. So A vector will be represented as AX I cap plus AY J cap. The magnitude is AX and tan theta is then AY upon AX. Perpendicular upon base. Is that clear? So this was about the introduction to the vectors and resolution of vectors. We will see more about in the second lecture, triangle law of vector addition, etc. Friends, thank you for watching. Don't forget to give a like और कमेंट. अगर अभी तक आपने मेरे इस चैनल को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो प्लीज डू द सेम. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so that whenever a new video is loaded you get the notification. Take care. and we will meet back again with a new video and a new solution. Thank you, friends.